You are listening to the Becoming the Wealthy You podcast with Jermaine Foley. If you're a woman who makes good money in your career or business, but you're not building wealth like you want to, then you're in the right place. In this podcast, you'll learn how to stop overspending, break free from the cycle of debt, save lots of cash, and become the wealthy woman you were born to be. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to discuss how to raise the standards for your finances so that you can elevate your life. Here's what I'm going to say to you right now. Nothing in your life changes until you raise your standards, especially your financial standards. This topic is so important because the financial standards you set for yourself will dictate the results you get. Without raising your financial standards, you will stay stuck in the same place month after month and year after year. This idea right here underscores why I changed the name of the podcast to Becoming the Wealthy You, because it's all about growth versus stagnation. It's all about the journey versus getting to a destination. I spoke about this on the last episode, but we as humans are designed to always be growing and becoming the next highest version of ourselves in every area of our lives, including our finances. So that is the mission of this show, is to help you to elevate your standards when it comes to your money. And so let's go ahead and dive into a question that I have for you. Which area of your finances do you need to raise your standards in order to grow financially? Is it around managing your money? Is it around spending money? Is it around saving money? Is it around using debt properly? Is it around investing or earning? Or is it around having money, just being comfortable with lots of money in your presence? Which area do you need to elevate your standards in? Now, you may have multiple areas, but I encourage you to really reflect on this question and choose the one area that if you elevated that area, it will cause a ripple effect. So, for instance, let's say you are someone who makes good money, right? You have plenty of money coming in. You know that about yourself. That's not a question for you. Because the truth is, whenever you're not building wealth, you need to look at one or two things. One is income and one is expenses. Now, for the women I work with in my coaching programs, income is not the problem. And for you, because you're listening to this podcast, income likely is not your problem, right? So we always want to look, is it income or is it outgo? Is it the expenses? So for you, it could be the expenses. And it's not your fixed expenses that are the problem. It is usually the impulse spending and the emotional spending and the overspending. Okay, so let's say that's your area. You do some reflection and you know it's not your income, it's actually your spending. That right there, if that is your issue, once you get that under control, it can cause a ripple effect and all the other areas that are problematic will kind of resolve themselves. So if you're finding yourself stuck in a credit card debt cycle, if you get your spending under control, then two things will happen. One, you'll probably stop going so far into debt because you're not overspending. And then you'll be able to use the money that you're no longer overspending with to pay off your debt, right? If you have issues saving, if you get your spending under control, guess what? You can save that money. So pick an area that if you can fix that area, it would cause a ripple effect and overflow into fixing other areas. So even though I'm offering you to pick that one area that could cause a ripple effect, I want you to know that no matter which area you choose, I'm going to share with you a framework that you can use to elevate your standards. This framework is called the 4C formula, and it was created by Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan is an amazing business coach, and I love all of his concepts and tools, and this is one of them that I'm going to share with you today. Now, before we get into the formula, I want to invite you to check out my newly refreshed complimentary training called How to Build Wealth Without Going on a Strict Budget. Now, you can grab this refreshed training. I refreshed it as of the beginning of 2025. So if you've already gone through it, I'm inviting you to go back through it again because you'll get new essentials that I've added, as well as just a refresh to the training. As I learn and grow, I always like to share those new things with you all. So you can grab it by going to jermainefoley.com/wealth class. That's Jermaine with a G, foley.com/wealth class. Or you can go to the show notes and grab it there. So in the training, I walk you through the 4 essentials you need in order to embrace living a life that balances and prioritizes both your financial well-being and the enjoyment of life. Now, if you went through this training before, I'm inviting you to go through it again, like I said earlier, because it is refreshed and updated, and this is as of 2025. So all you got to do again is go to jermainefoley.com/wealth class, or simply go to the show notes to grab it. Now, before we dive into the framework, let me go ahead and just explain why it matters so much that you raise your financial standards. So here's the first reason. Your financial results, that is the money you have in the bank, your net worth, the amount of debt you have, the amount of money you earn, how you spend, all of that, they are all a reflection of your standards. What you accept from yourself, what you expect from yourself, and what you have normalized about yourself. So here are a couple of examples. You might consider yourself to have low standards if you spend everything you make, right? Or if you constantly have revolving credit card debt that you carry from month to month, which causes you to pay lots of money in interest to credit card companies. Versus a higher standard might be, okay, I max out my 401k every year, and I max out my self-employed IRA every year, right? You see the difference there? One standard is depleting your wealth, and the other standard is increasing your wealth. Okay, so that's a good way to evaluate your standards. Like, okay, is this standard that I currently have around each area of my life increasing my wealth or decreasing my wealth? Now, if it's increasing your wealth, then that's a standard we want to keep and still find a way to elevate. And if it's decreasing your wealth, that's a standard that we just need to throw out the window and create a more elevated one about ourselves and our finances. Now, I understand that change is not easy. It's actually emotionally and psychologically uncomfortable. I know. I've changed so many times in so many areas of my life, and it is uncomfortable, but oh, so worth it. But let's talk about why it's so uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because it requires letting go of habits, beliefs, and parts of your identity that no longer serve you. And these habits and beliefs and parts of us, they are familiar, and it's hard to let go of what is familiar for something that is unfamiliar. It requires giving something up and an investment on your part. And that is sometimes hard for us to do, especially if we're not used to doing it, especially if we have the identity of someone who doesn't invest in ourselves, if we have the identity of someone who doesn't change. It's hard to do that when you don't consider yourself being that kind of person. So there's this theory called prospect theory, and it states that we humans have an aversion to loss. So what that means is we put more value on what we might lose or what we will give up versus what we will gain. So we will put more value on giving something up. The thing we give up, we value more than what we will gain by giving that thing up. So let's take a non-money example. Let's say you want to get healthier, and we will put more value on maybe giving up certain foods versus the health benefits that are waiting for us on the other side of that decision. Okay. Another example is this. I know many of you want to potentially work with me in the Wealthy Woman's Academy, or maybe hire me as your one-on-one coach, right? You want that. You know that it could literally be the thing that will help you to become that wealthier version of yourself and stay that way. Not just do it temporarily, but actually become the wealthier version of you and then keep elevating from there. But when you look at the investment, you put more value on that investment versus the return on that investment you will get. So let's say the cost or the price or the investment is $2,000, right? Working with me, my goal for all my clients is to help them to have a $10,000 turnaround within the first year. So that first year they work with me, the goal is for them to 5x their investment. And we do that in a combination of ways, right? By getting rid of debt, by saving, by investing, or a combination of the three. And people value that $2,000 versus the $10,000 turnaround. But here's where it gets really interesting. That $10,000 is just a drop in the bucket, because when you have set your standards on your spending, on your debt, on your savings, and that is now your new normal, that is who you are, the return on your investment from just that $2,000 is off the charts. You can't even measure it, because how you will handle your money moving forward will compound and compound and compound. Like all the credit card interest you will no longer pay, all of the interest you will gain from having your money in high yield savings, and that savings growing to a 10K or a 20K amount, depending on what you want as your nest egg that is available to you in a high yield savings account, right? Then the amount of money you will invest in the compounding interest that will come year after year after year from that. The return on your investment is so off the charts because of who you will become. So that first year is just like a drop in the bucket, right? Because you're learning new habits, you're trying new things, you're making mistakes. And even with that, you're going to have some real gains, right? But then because of who you've become, that wealthier version of yourself that you've become, now all of the decisions you will make moving forward, all of the money that you won't impulsively just spend and emotionally spend, and you can then funnel that money to go to work for you and to multiply, like it is just off the charts. But again, our brains are like, no, I don't want to lose that $2,000. It is so mind-boggling, right? And so you have to be onto yourself. Now, the 4C formula that I'm about to share with you will help you to push past the fears and the aversions of letting go of what is familiar and habitual so that you can create a wealthier life that you truly want to have. So here is the 4C formula. The first part of the 4C formula is to commit. Listen, nothing changes until you commit to a new standard that is far above your current comfort zone. Okay? When you commit to something, what you're doing is saying no to all other choices. Think about when you get married. You are committing to that one person in front of you at the altar. You're saying your vows and you're cutting off all the other men and women, all the other options that are available to you, right? And this is really interesting, right? Because when you think about loss aversion, like I just described to you, so many people are afraid to get married, especially I want to say this is more men than women, honestly. They're afraid to get married and commit to this one beautiful, amazing woman that has everything he could ever imagine. He's afraid to commit to her because of all of the other women that he has to lose out on. But he doesn't see what's in front of him, the gains, the life that's available to him if he was just willing to commit. right? So don't let loss aversion trap you and trick you into staying the same when what's in front of you, when the return on your investment is just so much more than you can even imagine or think. Like who you become is just off the charts. It is amazing. So just don't let loss aversion trick you. Be a little bit more savvy than thinking like, I don't want to lose this. Think about what you can gain. So if you're committed to no longer carrying a credit card balance from month to month, then you're cutting off the options that will keep you doing that. Okay, so the second C is courage. Courage is what's needed in order to stick to your commitment. Because when you commit to something, it feels scary and uncomfortable. Even when you make mistakes, you're going to also need to tap into the courage. So for instance, let's go back to the marriage example. In order to walk down that aisle, both parties will need to be courageous in order to move forward with that commitment. Okay? Because it's scary and uncomfortable, and you're walking into something you've never done before. It is uncertain. You don't know what's on the other side, but you're using courage. You're tapping into courage to move forward. Okay? So if you want to elevate your financial standards, you too have to tap into courage, right? You've got to say, okay, I'm courageous enough to know that I'll be able to figure out this money thing without relying on credit cards, right? That's scary and it's uncomfortable. But what if that's the one thing that will just change everything for you if you committed to that? You'll also need to tap into courage on the journey because you're going to make mistakes. So not only will you need courage in order to commit, you're going to need courage in order to stay on track, even after you make mistakes, even after you fail. Because the truth is you are going to make mistakes and you're going to fail. But you can use that failure as feedback and learning and not as a reason to quit. Okay? So one of the things I teach my clients to do is to anticipate or expect mistakes so that when they happen, you're not surprised by them and you're not like thrown off track by them. You're just like, okay, I made a mistake. I'm human. I'm embracing progress over perfection. I'm going to learn from this mistake and I'm going to keep it moving. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to let it derail me. I'm just going to keep going. There's a quote, and I'm sure you've heard it before, that success is actually built on a pile of failures, right? So if that's true, then let's go ahead and make some mistakes. As long as we learn from them and iterate and tweak moving forward, we will get to the results that we want to have for ourselves. Okay? This is why having a coach or a guide is so valuable, because when you make those mistakes, when unexpected life expenses and events happen, you don't let those things derail you and make you quit and go off track. You use those things as learning opportunities, and having someone in your corner like myself, a financial coach, is so valuable because you will keep moving forward and you will build up your capabilities. You will use the mistakes and the learnings to build your strength and your capabilities. And that brings us to the third C, which is capabilities. So as you continue forward with your commitment to raise your standards, you develop the skills and habits to meet and maintain your new standards, right? Now, this doesn't happen overnight, and it won't be smooth sailings the entire way. There will be setbacks, there will be mistakes and learning. However, as you go through it, this is how you build your skills and your capabilities, which again is the third C. This is where the transformation that once felt impossible becomes second nature for you. Okay? It becomes second nature. And when it's second nature, that is when you are at the fourth C, which is confidence. So this is where confidence comes from, my friends. You are not born confident with your money. You become confident with your money by going through the process of committing and having courage to go after what you committed to. And as you do this, you build up your strengths, You build up your resilience, you build up your capabilities, and then you become confident in that particular area. Okay. So I think some of us think you're born confident. You're either born with confidence or you just won't ever have it. It's not true. You cultivate and build confidence by going through this 4C framework, where you first commit, then you tap into courage so that you can move forward towards your commitments. And as you do that over and over again, you build up your capabilities. And once you have those capabilities, you are now confident. You're confident in that one area of your life. So you're like so confident in the fact that you don't carry credit card balances from month to month. You're like, that's just not who I am. I used to be that person, but I'm not even worried about doing that ever again, right? Some people think they need to cut up their credit cards and never use credit cards again, and that the credit cards are the ones that are making them go into debt, right? You're like, no, I can have as many credit cards as I want and I will never do that again. That's just not who I am. You have built up the capability to be that person. And so you have confidence in yourself. You're like, no, I'm not afraid of having a credit card. I'm not afraid of using credit cards for my monthly bills because I am now the person that pays it off every month. And I am able to get the points and the perks, but I'm not paying the interest. I'm no longer making the credit card companies rich. I am making myself rich. That's where that confidence comes from. You're not born with that. You create that. And then you repeat the process over and over again. This is how you consistently elevate yourself. So once you have one standard taken care of, you elevate and create another standard for yourself. This is how you become a wealthier version of yourself over and over and over again. This, my friends, is how you grow. So here's how you can put it into practice really quick. Before I go, this is what you do. Number one, identify your current financial standards. Sit down, do a brain dump, get a sheet of paper and go through the list I mentioned earlier. Like, what are your standards around managing money, saving money, spending money, your debt level, your investment, your earnings, having money, all the things. What are your current standards? And then just pick one standard. Define one new standard that you want to normalize in your life, right? You want to be saving. You want to not carry credit card balances. You want to get your spending under control, figure out your standard. And then from there, tap into courage so that you can commit to that new standard. And then all you have to do from there with that commitment and with that courage is to take the first step. You do not need to take 50 steps at one time. You do not need to know how you're going to get from point A to Z. All you need to know is how you're going to get from A to B. So just that first step, that's all you need to know. And then once you take that step, the next step will be made known to you, right? So think about if you were going down a dark set of stairs and every time you took a step, that step lit up. And then the next step you took, it lit up. And then the next step it took, it lit up. That is how your financial journey is going to be. You are never, ever going to know how you're going to get from point A to Z. I promise you, you will never know that, but you will know how to go from A to B and then from B to C. But you're not going to know step C until you take the step to get to B, right? And so with that, I invite you to consider if taking my complimentary training, How to Build Wealth Without Going on a Strict Budget, if that could be your first step. Okay. And if it is, all you have to do is go to jermainefoley.com/wealth-class. That's Jermaine with a G, Foley.com/wealth-class. Or you can simply go to the show notes and sign up. I cannot wait to have you take the course. As soon as you sign up, you will get immediate access to it. All right. You all have a beautiful week. I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Wait, before you go, have you checked out my free class? It's all about the steps you need to take if you want to build wealth without going on a strict budget. To sign up, simply go to jermainefoley.com/wealth-class. That's Jermaine with a G, Foley.com/wealth-class. /wealth class. See you in there.